Hello, I'm Frankie Rufolo, and today I'm going to do a book review of George's Secret Key to the Universe by Stephen Hawking. Sorry, the cover's so shiny. And the critics are all over this because it genuinely is wonderful that the world's greatest physicist has gone out of his way with his daughter, Lucy Hawking, to write a children's book to try and get children into science. And bearing in mind that, Stephen Hawking is a physicist, writing children's books isn't going to be his area of expertise, it is really good. It has a fair bit of child appeal, and there's a bit of charm about it. But take into account that his daughter writes professionally, and there are quite a few other people working on it, like a former student of Stephen Hawking, quite a few editors. It could have been better. It has its faults. Just give it the same scrutiny as another children's book. As I would give another children's book. Well, what's it about? It is about a boy, George, and his pet pig discovering science, as they discover that their neighbour is a scientist and his daughter is sort of a mini scientist. So what's good about it? Well, the characters are really quite likeable. George, some people might see him as a blank slate character, but well, as blank slate characters go, he's not the blankest, most blandest. We learn about his feelings towards his parents. His background is pretty interesting. And the boy's got a pet pig. That's kind of quirky, isn't it? Anyway, admittedly, this character, Annie, the little girl scientist, can be annoying, but generally that it's intended. I think you can tell from this design that she'll be annoying. I do wish she would have been a bit more like Florida Kirby and Cosmic, but the writing's fine, good, decent description. And one thing I really admire about this book is that it sort of looks at two sides of an argument, as to whether space travel is a waste of money when there are so many problems on Earth that science could solve. That's pretty interesting. Bearing in mind there are so many children's books where the environmental message is just way too obvious, and there's nothing to actually prove the author even cared about the environment, they just thought it would sell. And I think also, because George's parents are extremely environmentalists, but he doesn't want to have to stick by their rules because they want to protect him from the evils of technology, whereas he wants to live more like an ordinary kid and just do his bit for the environment. And that's interesting stuff. But any problems? Well, the pacing. The book, it just really stop and start. There are all these fact files and things. It just slows down to give you a science lesson. I think it is important to have something educational in a children's book. I mean, for a book like this, that is kind of the idea, to make science fun. But I think to do that, you've got to incorporate it into the story better. In Cosmic, they sort of incorporated it into the story. Here's a good example. In the My Alien Classmate book, in the second one, Attack of the 2-Inch Teacher, when they explain how the shrinking process works, they sort of explain atoms and things, how everything's made of them, and then towards the end, when in defeating the villain, they talk about propulsion and mass and leverage. And anyway, so some people were more interested in the science and the fact files, hang on, if I can show you, because the fact files and things are pretty good. There are some good images and things, but I mean, characters get cut off in mid-sentence by these fact files, so I found that kind of annoying. But I think the illustrations really redeem it. The illustrations are wonderful. But I think another small problem with this book is the villain. So while I was reading it, at first I could believe these were ordinary, believable characters drawn in a fun and cartoony way, until I came across this guy. I mean, it's pretty obvious he's a villain. He looks like Jimmy Neutron entered the world of espionage. And there was some really interesting stuff. There were so many ways they could have gone with this villain. Where the science was incorporated into the story, it's incorporated into the villain's plan. And that's where it works really well. And, like, he seemed like a really complex character for a children's book. But, like, it seemed as if the villain and the hero weren't too different. But then they sort of ruin him and turn him into a villain who's just motivated by greed. They're pretty one-dimensional and boring. But it does have a charm about it. For children, it is very enjoyable. It's a good book for reluctant readers. It's a great book to get children into science. I mean, there are a few things that were new to me here, like Stephen Hawking explains black holes really well. I think that bit was fascinating, and that was incorporated into the story properly. So, and you really feel the passion behind it, and the depth. There is a bit of depth there, and it is it is a treat. It is wonderful that it is truly wonderful that Stephen Hawking's daughter came up with the idea for this and they got together. So, try it out.